Now that we've finished Sweat, we're going to be starting the novel Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko. You can see the directions for this on our class website. Here you can see for Friday 2/18, we are beginning Ceremony. If you click the directions link on our class website under Ceremony, Hate and Healing, you'll see the directions for the week. So here we are. There's the video recording of our last meeting. There's the class WhatsApp, which you can join to talk with your classmates about what's going on in our class. Here are the links to the readings. There are 3 readings for this class meeting. One of them is the first section that we're reading from the novel Ceremony. And the second reading is Chambers, The World as It Is and the World as It Should Be. And the third one is Lakoff's New Consciousness. And you can access all the readings by clicking on the links. Before we look at the readings, let's look at the writing assignments. We have a form contribution and we have an analysis. You can choose either analysis 3 on Ceremony or you can choose analysis 4 on Ceremony. So first, if you look, the form contributions, we're finishing the community biopoems, and then there's just a form contribution on Edward Chambers' The World as It Is and the World as It Should Be. So you can get the ideas in that reading down before you move into thinking more deeply about Ceremony. The analyses are on either the 21st of February or the 28th of February, and one of them is on cognitive science meets indigenous worldview in Ceremony. The other one is on the countering hate with nonviolence in Ceremony. So the first analysis on the first sections that we're reading from Ceremony, and the last analysis focuses especially on the end of the novel Ceremony. So let's take an analysis 3 for today, which is due on February 21st. So we have a while before that's due, but you definitely want to get started on it so that you know what the assignment is while you're looking through the novel and the sections that we're reading from it. So the question asks, are there elements of George Lakoff's New Consciousness in Tayo's, that's the main character of Ceremony, and Betoni, who's the second medicine man in Ceremony, in their worldviews in Leslie Marmon Silko's novel Ceremony? Lakoff describes the shift from our current economic consciousness to a newly ecological consciousness. And then he defines for us the difference between sort of the economic consciousness we're functioning with now and an ecological consciousness that he is arguing we should shift to. So instead of asking about a policy proposal, this is a quote from Lakoff, what are the economic gains? So instead of just saying, what are the financial benefits of doing things this way? And what are the costs? So what's it going to cost me and what's it going to gain me? Instead of just thinking financially, we must ask other questions first. What are a policy's empathetic consequences? In other words, the consequences in terms of empathy, how you feel for others. So what are a policy's empathetic consequences? How does it affect all that we are connected to? So instead of just thinking in terms of, I can make this money, he's saying it needs to be more in terms of what do we need in order to grow and flourish. So you're not just thinking about the economic gains for yourself, you're thinking about how all of the system fits together, like in ecology, right? If you look out in nature, it doesn't work that you gain something and get rid of everything else, right? If you change one little thing in nature, you affect everything else. And the example that many critics use when they're talking about Ceremony is if you remove flies, which we don't think of as important, right? Flies, worms, bugs, that kind of thing. We tend to think of getting rid of them in our houses and just eradicating them, right? Bug killer. But in fact, flies, worms, all bugs have a really important role to play in the overall natural environment. Worms turn refuse into soil. Flies actually do the same thing. They help to break down things that are dying and dead. And so we need these animals in our system. If you remove mosquitoes, you're removing one other animal's food source, right? You can't take one thing out without affecting all of the other things, including us, right? Without soil, as we find, we need more and more and more fertilizer. As we add more chemical fertilizers, we destroy more of our environment. So the whole thing is interconnected. It's not even that he's saying that we move away from economic consciousness. He's really saying that we need to think about an economic consciousness that takes everything into account. In other words, if I extract this oil, I'm destroying this land. If I destroy this land and I have runoff into the water, I'm destroying my water source. So you need to think in terms of cost benefits that take into account the entire system. How does this one piece affect all of the others? So it's really not just thinking in terms of not gain, but it is thinking in terms of gain, but gain for a whole balanced system, making sure you have all of the pieces of your environment interconnected and gaining together so that it's a balance, a harmony, as Silko's ceremony talks about finding balance in ceremony through the sacred sort of harmony that Tayo needs to find through Betoni's healing of him because he has the PTSD. So instead of asking about a policy proposal, what are the economic gains and what are the costs, we must ask other questions first. What are the policy's empathetic consequences? How does it affect other people, other animals, other creatures, the land? How does it affect all that we are connected to and that we need to sustain ourselves and that we do to sustain others? How does it affect the natural world? Does it sustain life or does it harm life? Because in the end, the goal is really not to earn money. It's to live a life, a good life, a happy life, and a healthy life, not just for yourself, but for all of the other people that you're connected to, which is basically everyone. So does it sustain us or does it harm us all together collectively? How am I personally connected to its consequences as a human being? And what, if anything, makes it beautiful, healthful, enjoyable, and fulfilling? Because really that should be the goal of life, right? What big system does it fit into? How will it affect future generations? Is it fair? Does it make us more free? Will it lift spirits and will we find awe in it? Because economic gain without those things is not a gain, really, not for yourself and not for others. So first, you're just focusing in your form contribution on Chambers' ideas and Lakoff's ideas about this sort of new consciousness, and then we're moving on the analysis to bring all of the pieces together. If you look at Chambers, he talks about the world as it is and the world as it should be. Things that we tend to think of in tensions, like the way things are, just the way things are, versus the way things could be, shouldn't exist as opposites, right? This is just what we have to live with. We should also think in terms of balances. This is what we have to live with, but this is what we should also be thinking of as what should be or could be. So if you take a look actually at the text that I've given you, I have the link here for Chambers. If you click on it, you'll see that for all of our texts, I've tried to give you headlines so that you can see on the left margin there what the main sections in the reading are. Chambers talks about how we shouldn't be thinking in terms of either this or that, which is really similar to what Lakoff is saying when he says it shouldn't just be economic, it should be ecological. It shouldn't be just about self-gain. It should be about a balance in a whole interconnected system. So it's not either self-interest or self-sacrifice. It has to be a balance of what's good for me and what's also good for everything else around me, including the people and the insects and the earth and all of the things that I'm connected to. He also argues it shouldn't just be about power, it should also be about love. And it can't just be about love, it also has to be about power. It should be a balance and a harmony between those two. Power being having authority over each other, say your children, telling them what to do, and your love for your children, allowing them to make choices for themselves. And you know that, right? As a parent or as a child, as a friend, you know that good relationships are healthy relationships, are a balance between power, what I need you to do, and love, what you need me to do. Same thing he says between change, and that is having things change over time, and unity, having things stay the same so we all sort of know what to expect. Imagination and hope, like imagining what could be and hoping to make it. So he talks about how things that we think of as in conflict, self and other, don't need to be in conflict. They can be in balance. And in fact, most of us live our personal lives that way, balancing between what we need and what other people need, what the world around us needs and what we want from it. So he argues for that balance. If you'll take a look at Lakoff's ideas, which the text is here. Whoops, I think yes, that's it. A new enlightenment, he says, comes with a new consciousness, a basic stance toward each other in the world, and it requires a realization that empathy and responsibility are at the heart of a moral vision on which our democracy is based. An understanding of real reason and a comprehension of a systemic causation, that is, thinking about everything as interconnected in a big system where every one thing causes an effect in every other thing. So we're connected to the natural world and to each other. You can see that this Lakoff's ideas about finding a balance between ourselves and the world around us as being an ecological consciousness, not just thinking about power or money, but thinking about the whole system, is really, really similar to what Chambers is talking about when he says, don't think in terms of polarities, that is, either this or that, two polar opposites. Think in terms of tensions between them, where I want to balance this with that, self with other, love with power, hope with imagination. I want to balance these things. And that's really what ceremony also is doing. If we take a look at ceremony, Tayo is trying to find balance and harmony in a world that has become unbalanced due to his post-traumatic stress disorder, after fighting in World War II and seeing Rocky die in front of him, and also just a whole life of difficulty from the time that he's born and his mother can't care for him and he's left on his own as a baby, to the time that he's living with Auntie, who doesn't think him good enough because he's half white and half Native American. He's not fully Native American, so he doesn't, quote, fit in. And that's where that idea of the hybrid comes in that novel Ceremony. And that is the idea that being both change and unity, being both what used to be and what is now and what could be, is a strength. Because Tayo combines the white world with the native world, the land with sort of everything that's new, industry, and that makes him actually stronger, even though he needs to recognize that it's a strength. He needs to see what the strengths are. And that, when we're watching the novel, is sort of what the ceremony does, is it helps him balance all of the conflicts in his life and integrate them so that he is not suffering any longer. Okay, so I will do another video on ceremony so we can get deeper into the text of the novel, but get started thinking about this sort of ecological consciousness, about this not working in terms of polarities that really underlies Lakoff's ideas, Chambers' ideas, but also Leslie Marmon Silko's ideas in the novel Ceremony. Okay, bye.